As a search and rescue coordinator, I've led over 200 missing persons searches in national parks. I found hikers who got lost, children who wandered off, elderly people with dementia. But there are 13 cases I've worked where nothing adds up. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 missing 411 cases Rangers filed that were never supposed to leave the office. Subscribe if you enjoy. Let's jump into story 1. We found the 6-year-old standing on top of a 40-foot boulder in a field that took us 12 hours to hike to. She'd been missing 3 days. Her shoes were arranged at the base of the rock in a perfect line. And when we asked how she got up there, she said, "The man with no face helped me." I'm Jake Foster. I've been running search and rescue in Yosemite for 14 years. I've seen lost hikers, bear attacks, climbing accidents. You learn to expect the worst. But on July the 14th, 2018, I saw something I still can't explain. Alicia Morrison, 6 years old, disappeared while picking huckleberries with her grandmother near the Tuolumne Meadows. It was 3:17 p.m. The grandmother turned to empty her basket. When she turned back, 90 seconds later, Alicia was gone. No scream, no sound. The grandmother didn't hear footsteps, just gone. We deployed K9 units within 2 hours. 3 separate tracking dogs picked up Alicia's state. 3 separate tracking dogs picked up Alicia's scent at the berry patch. They followed it maybe 10 yards, then they stopped. All 3 dogs, same spot, they wouldn't move forward. One of them, Rex, an 8-year veteran with 47 successful tracks, sat down, whimpered, and refused to budge. His handler told me, "He's never done this. It's like he smells something that terrifies him." We searched for 48 hours, 200 volunteers, infrared helicopters. Nothing. On day 3, a hiker called in a report. He'd seen a little girl standing on a big rock 11 miles northeast of where Alicia had disappeared. Cathedral Peak, a granite boulder field with formations the size of buildings. Class 3 and 4 climbing terrain. You need ropes, harnesses, experience. It took our team 12 hours to reach the location with full climbing gear. And there she was, standing on the summit of a 40-foot granite boulder, barefoot, arms by her side, staring straight ahead. Her shoes and socks were at the base of the boulder, arranged in a perfect line, laces tied together in a neat bow. We climbed up to get her, 0 scratches on her hands or feet, no cuts, no bruises, her clothes were clean, no dirt, no tears. She'd been missing 72 hours in July wilderness with no food or water, but she wasn't dehydrated. Her body temperature was 94.2 degrees, mild hypothermia, despite the warm weather. And this is where it gets weird. When I asked her how she got on top of the 40-foot boulder without climbing gear or injuries, she just looked up at me with completely calm eyes and said, "The man with no face took me here. He said to wait on the tall rock." I asked her what the man looked like. She said, "He didn't have a face, just empty. But he was nice. He carried me." I asked her how he carried her 11 miles through wilderness. She said, "I don't know. I just remember him putting me on the rock. He said not to come down until you found me." That's all she remembers. 3 days, gone. 11 miles through terrain that would take an adult 2 days to hike. No memory of anything, just the man, and waiting on the rock. The medical team examined her. No injuries consistent with an 11-mile hike. No blisters, no muscle fatigue. Her fingernails were clean. No soil, no evidence of climbing. A pediatric neurologist ran tests. His report said, "She's exhibiting symptoms similar to dissociative amnesia, but her brain activity is completely normal. She's not lying. She generally doesn't remember. Her grandmother's DNA was on the berry basket. Alicia's DNA was on the huckleberries in the basket. But there was no physical evidence of how she travelled 11 miles or climbed a 40-foot boulder. I didn't think much of it at first. Trauma does strange things to memory. Kids imagine things. But then I started looking at old incident reports. I found 8 similar cases in Yosemite since 1998, all near granite boulder fields, all children under 10, all found miles from their disappearance point, all with no memory, and all of them described someone helping them. One report from 2003, a 4-year-old found on top of a 30-foot boulder, said, "The tall man put me here." Another from 2011, a 7-year-old 12 miles from her campsite, said, "The empty man told me to wait." Every single case was filed as lost hiker, found alive, exposure. No mention of the patterns, no follow-up investigation. Alicia Morris is 17 now. She still doesn't remember those 3 days. But 6 months after we found her parents called. Alicia had started drawing the same picture over and over, in her notebooks, on scratch paper, on the walls of her bedroom. A tall figure, no facial features, just standing next to a giant rock. And under every drawing, in a child's handwriting, she wrote, "He's still waiting at the rocks." Her parents moved them to Florida, as far from Granite Mountains as they could get. But I still patrol 2 alumni meadows, and every time I pass that boulder field, I count the shoes. Because twice since Alicia, we found children's shoes arranged in neat lines at the base of those boulders. Both times, arranged in the same pattern, laces tied together, perfectly placed. But we never found the children. If that had been the only case where our tracking dogs refused to work, I'll just call it a coincidence. But the next instant, the dogs didn't just refuse. They alerted for a dead body in a spot we've already searched 3 times. Story 2. The hunter who vanished from his tree stand. Cavalier dogs alerted on his tree stand. They were certain. Dead body, right here. But we searched that exact spot 3 times. There was nothing. Then on day 4, he just appeared, sitting in his tree stand, alive. And his boots had wear patterns suggesting he walked 200 miles in 4 days, through terrain he couldn't possibly cross. I'm Sarah Michaels, Search and Rescue Coordinator for the Superior National Forest in Minnesota. October the 9th, 2019. Marcus Webb went missing. 42 years old. Experienced bow hunter, former Marine, the kind of guy who doesn't get lost. Marcus was hunting from a tree stand, an elevated platform 15 feet up in a tree. He was 2 miles from the trailhead, near a granite outcropping. His hunting partner, Dave Klein, left Marcus at the stand at noon and went to scout another area. They agreed to meet back at 4:45 p.m. Dave returned on time. Marcus was gone. His bow was still in the tree stand, his backpack, his cell phone, the safety harness was clipped, but empty. No blood, no signs of struggle, no tracks leading away from the base of the tree. Just gone. We deployed ground teams immediately. By day 2, we had K9 units. The tracking dogs picked up Marcus's scent at the tree stand. They followed it for about 40 yards into the woods. Then they stopped. All 3 dogs just refused to go further. On day 3, we brought in Cavalier dogs. 2 separate Cavalier dogs alerted at the base of Marcus's tree stand. Both of them, same behaviour, sitting, pawing the floor, indicating decomposition scent. The handler told me, "Both dogs are indicating a dead body, right here, they're absolutely certain." We excavated the area, brought in ground penetrating radar. Nothing. We brought the dogs back, they alerted again. Same spot, but there was nothing there. Day 4, 6:23 a.m. A volunteer searcher was walking past Marcus's tree stand, an area we searched 6 times. He radioed in. "I found him. He's just sitting there." Marcus was in his tree stand, bow across his lap, staring straight ahead. Unresponsive, eyes open, breathing shallow. His core body temperature was 91.7 degrees, hypothermic, dehydrated, but not critically. But his feet were covered in severe blisters, the kind you get from hiking for days without stopping. We got Marcus to the hospital. His clothing was covered in pine needles, dirt, moss, but not from the area around his tree stand. The botanist we consulted said the plant matter was from tree species that don't grow in that part of Minnesota. His boots were nearly destroyed. When Marcus left for his hunt, his boots were new, 95% tread remaining. When we found him 4 days later, the tread was worn down to 40%. I sent them to a forensic boot analyst. His report said, "These wear patterns are consistent with 150 to 200 miles of hiking over rough, rocky terrain." The area around Marcus's tree stand has a 6-mile trail loop, maximum. There's no way to walk 200 miles there. On day 6, Marcus was stable enough to talk. I asked him, "Where were you for those 4 days?" He looked at me with empty eyes and said, "I don't know. I remember sitting in the tree stand. Then, blank. Then I was sitting in the tree stand again." I asked, "Do you remember walking?" He started crying. "No, but my feet, God, my feet hurt, like I've been walking for weeks." I asked if he remembered seeing anything unusual. He said, "I keep seeing flashes, trees, but they're the wrong trees, and rocks, huge rocks. I've never seen rocks that big in Minnesota." I had him draw what he remembered. He drew massive boulder formations, granite, the kind you see in Yosemite, 1,200 miles away. The podiatrist examined Marcus's feet. She said the wear patterns were equivalent to 3 to 4 weeks of continuous hiking, but he'd only been gone for 4 days. His muscle tissue showed signs of atrophy, like he'd been sitting still for a long time, but his boots showed continuous movement. His body simultaneously showed evidence of prolonged walking and prolonged stillness, medically impossible. I went back to the Cavalier dog handlers. I asked them, "Are you certain your dog smelled a dead body at that tree stand?" Both handlers said the same thing. "Absolutely certain. My dog doesn't make mistakes. He smelled human decomposition at that exact spot." "But Marcus is alive," one handler said. "I know, and I can't explain it, but my dog smelled death there, and I'll stake my career on it." Marcus Webb quit hunting, sold all his gear, won't go near the woods anymore. But here's what keeps me awake. 6 months after we found him, a different hunter called us. He found a tree stand 30 miles from Marcus's location. He didn't climb up, but he saw something carved into the tree trunk below the stand. Fresh cuts, recent, stating, "Webb was here," with a date, October the 11th, 2019, day 2 of Marcus's disappearance. We sent a forensic team. They analysed the carving. The handwriting matched Marcus's. The knife marks matched his hunting knife. They found his DNA in the wood chips. I called Marcus, asked him if he'd ever been to that part of the forest. He said no, never. He'd never even heard of that area. I asked if he remembered carving his name. He said, "I don't own a tree stand anymore, and I haven't been in those woods since you found me." But you see, the evidence doesn't lie. Someone carved Marcus's name into that tree. On day 2 of his disappearance, 35 miles from where he vanished, using his handwriting, his knife, his DNA. Whatever walked 200 miles in Marcus Webb's boots, it wasn't Marcus. If you think that's the strangest thing I've seen, the last case involves something that should be scientifically impossible. Story 3. The boy who vanished while holding his father's hand. He vanished while holding his father's hand. 1 second there, next second gone, like he'd been erased. 3 days later, we found him in a berry patch we searched 11 times. He was speaking fluent Cherokee, a dialect that hadn't been spoken since the 1600s, and he had no idea who his parents were. I'm Mike Torres. I've been coordinating search and rescue in the Great Smoky Mountains for 16 years. I'm Cherokee. I speak the language. I know these mountains. But June 22nd, 2020, I saw something that made me question everything I know. Ethan Cole, 8 years old, disappeared while hiking a Lum Cave trail with his father David and his sister Emma. 2:34 p.m. The family stopped at this scenic overlook. David was holding Ethan's hand. Emma was taking a photo on her phone. David felt Ethan's hand slip away. He turned immediately. Ethan was gone. Elapsed time, less than 3 seconds. No scream, no sound, no movement. Emma's phone captured the moment. We reviewed the photos later. First photo, David holding Ethan's hand, both of them smiling. Next photo, 2 seconds later, David's hand is empty. Ethan is not in the frame. He didn't run. He didn't fall. He just vanished. 40 hikers were on that trail. We interviewed every single one. Nobody saw a child pass them. We deployed K9 units within 90 minutes. The dogs, they tracked Ethan's scent 60 feet to the Huckleberry Patch. Then the scent vanished. Not faded, vanished. The handler told me, "It's like he just stopped existing. The scent ends, not fades, ends." 400 volunteers, 6 helicopters, 62 hours of searching. Nothing. Day 3, 11:47 a.m. A volunteer found Ethan sitting in the Huckleberry Patch, the same patch we searched 11 times. He was clean, no dirt, same clothes he'd been wearing, not dehydrated, not hypothermic. Physically, he was unharmed. But when his parents ran to him, he looked at them like strangers. And when he spoke, it wasn't English. Ethan was speaking a language none of us recognized. His parents were crying, trying to hug him, and he kept backing away, speaking in this older voice. I'm Cherokee. I speak Talalangi, and I caught fragments, but it was wrong. The grammar was different. The punctuation was archaic. We brought in a linguistic team from the University of Tennessee. They recorded him for 6 hours. Their report said Ethan was speaking a Cherokee dialect that went extinct around 1620 to 1650. It used grammatical structures that modern Cherokee doesn't have. It included vocabulary for animals that don't exist anymore: bison, passenger pigeons. Ethan was speaking it fluently, native level pronunciation. An 8-year-old who'd never studied Cherokee, speaking a dialect dead for 400 years. We tried to interview him through a translator. We asked, "What is your name?" He answered in Old Cherokee, "I am Sequoia's son. I gather berries for winter." We asked, "Do you know these people?" We showed him his parents. He said, "I do not know them. Where is my mother?" We asked, "What year is it?" He said, "The year the white man came with sickness." The translator told us Ethan kept asking about a smallpox epidemic, something that happened to the Cherokee in the 1700s. We examined his hands. He had berry stains on his fingers. but they weren't from modern huckleberries. A botanist analysed the stains. He said they were from Bacillium elati, a wild huckleberry species that went extinct in the 1890s. He even described plants and animals that haven't existed in the Smokies for over a century. He drew detailed maps of Cherokee settlements. We showed them to archaeologists. They match pre-1650 village locations, and some sites that haven't been discovered yet. Over the next 4 days, Ethan gradually stopped speaking Cherokee. English came back slowly, mixed with Cherokee at first and then just English. By day 7, he was speaking normally again, but he had no memory of the disappearance. He said, "I was picking berries with my family, then I was picking berries again. That's all I remember." He didn't remember speaking Cherokee, didn't remember anything he'd said, just blank. I started researching. I found 4 similar cases in the Smokies between 1989 and 2017. All children were under 10, all vanished near berry patches, all found in areas already searched multiple times. 2011 case, a 9-year-old spoke fluent Latin for 2 days, a language the child had never studied. 2017 case, a 6-year-old spoke an unknown language that linguistics couldn't identify. Every case, the child eventually stopped speaking the language and had no memory. Ethan Cold is 11 now. His family moved to Arizona. But 6 months ago, his teacher called me. Ethan had been drawing in art class. The same picture, over and over. A circle of people in old-fashioned clothes standing around the berry bush, and in the centre, a small figure being lifted into the air. The teacher asked me what it meant. He said, "They're choosing." She asked, "Choosing what?" Ethan looked at her and said, in perfect Cherokee, language he doesn't speak, "Choosing who goes back." Then he went back to drawing, like nothing happened. I called a Cherokee elder, a man in his 80s who speaks the old dialects. I played him the recording. He went very quiet. Then he said, "That phrase, we don't say it anymore. We stopped in the 1700s after the disappearances started." I asked what it meant. He said, "It means they're taking children to a place where time doesn't move to preserve them before the world changes too much." I asked who they were. He wouldn't answer, just said, "If your dogs won't track into the berry patches, don't make them. They know what's there, and they're smart enough to stay away." Last week, a 5-year-old went missing in the Smokies, near a huckleberry patch. Our dogs refused to track. We found her on day 2, in the same patch, clean, unharmed, speaking a language we haven't identified yet. She stopped speaking it after 4 hours. Now she doesn't remember. But before the language left, she drew the same picture Ethan drew. A circle of people, a child being lifted, and she said one thing in English before she forgot. "They said I wasn't ready yet. They'll try again later."